Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Books and Buds, where we discuss two of the greatest things on planet Earth, books and buds. Nothing really new on the bud front today, but I did read this book a long time ago. It's titled Save Me, and it didn't exactly save me, so to speak, because I have a fairly strong personality and I'm able to walk away from unhealthy situations, but it did make me feel better. So technically, it did save me a little bit. So I read this a while ago. This book by Kristyn Kusek Lewis. It's Kristyn with a Y, by the way. Kristyn Kusek Lewis. As I said many times, literary fiction is my favorite genre, and this is everything that a literary fiction book should be. This woman gets cheated on. It's a terrible subject, but Kristyn deals with it perfectly. And I just picked this book up at a perfect time in my life, because at the time I was just learned that I had been cheated on by a girlfriend that I was planning to marry. And of course it was devastating and all that. But you read a book like this where the woman, Daphne, the main character, she was cheated on by someone who was her childhood sweetheart. They met as children. She'd become a doctor. I think he was a doctor too, if I remember correctly. They were in the process of turning this barn into their perfect dream forever home. I mean, they just had it together. Their lives were just set in stone. So all of a sudden, this gentleman comes home, her husband Owen, and tells her that he's been seeing somebody else and he's falling in love with her. And he intends to leave the main character, Daphne, for her. So I was like, okay, well, I'm getting cheated on by someone that I've only, her and I had only met 4 or 5 years prior. And though I did care about her quite a bit, and I unfortunately developed a nice relationship with her son, so that was a double whammy for me. This one had it far worse. So it's one of those things where it's like, you know what, it could always be worse. I just needed to hear that. Though it's a work of fiction, these things happen. These things happen to everybody everywhere. If you haven't been cheated on, chances are real good you have and just don't know it, or you're going to be cheated on. Either that, you're one of the rare lucky ones, and God bless you. That's amazing. But this book, I just needed to read it at the time. So I don't know, maybe the universe put it in my lap at the right time. But I want to give her a little bit of respect, because in this book, Daphne's starting to move on. She's starting to deal with life without her husband. Of course, her family and her friends are being as supportive as they can, but what do you say to somebody like that? You're just going to tell them your opinion, when all they really need is an ear to whine into, just to kind of get that anger out to. And these people weren't being very supportive, so she was kind of working through it herself. She ended up meeting a nice man who was able to help her quite a bit, because he was listening and he was providing her with some sort of comfort that she needed, the main character, Daphne. But while all this is going on, her husband, Owen, gets into a terrible car accident, and now all of a sudden she's going to visit him, making sure he's okay. And during this terrible ordeal, he comes to realize that he had made a big mistake and that he truly is in love with our main character, Daphne. And he says this while she's really coming to terms with this new life she's envisioned for herself, because she spent quite a bit of this book trying to think about her past and her present. Was it a lie? Did she waste all those years? Did she ruin the best years of her life on this man? Well, now she's not sure she wants to ruin the rest of her life with him either, in case he hasn't changed it. Maybe this wasn't just a fluke. Maybe he's just not happy. And though she thought she was happy, she's starting to consider that maybe she wasn't that happy either. So you kind of get the feel, and I needed to hear something like that when I read this book, because I was going through the same things. Was I really happy? Was she really happy? Obviously not, if she was seeing somebody else behind my back. I wasn't providing her with all the happiness she needed. Or maybe she's just a terrible person and I don't want to be with her in the first place. But either way, you got to kind of get beyond it. You got to kind of walk away, take some time to yourself. In my case, I had left this person, and I was like, you know what, I deserve better. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have found all this wonderful stuff that's happened in my life since then. I mean, this was years ago since this woman I'm speaking of and I broke up. But just so many wonderful things in my life have happened since then. Starting a couple business, becoming fairly successful property owner. Now my writing career starting to take off, and to top it all off, the best part of it all is I met a woman that now I just honestly I couldn't see without having her in my life. I just can't imagine having anybody else there in her place. So none of these things would have happened if I hadn't have walked away from that awful situation rather than maybe trying to give her another chance. So books like this help inspire those kinds of decisions. Sometimes you sit there and you realize, you know what, I do deserve better. I do deserve happiness. And that's exactly what this character figures. I deserve some happiness. I deserve to find out what I want. So you're not really left finding out exactly what she gets, but you get a nice bit of closure at the end of this, because it's a fiction. It's a literary fiction, so they don't really wrap it up tidy with a bow in these kinds of books. They kind of leave you to wonder what happens next in most of these literary fiction books. But I kind of get the idea that she decided to move on and that she's going to be pretty happy with her decisions afterwards, because we're left with this beautiful scene of her in New York City where she is just happy. And that's what it's all about, everybody. It's all about just finding out what doesn't work for you, what does work for you, trying new things, exploring where your life can take you, and just turning that page and get into the next chapter in your life, everybody. Hey, right there, another chapter. You like how I did that? So that's exactly what I did. Reading books like this inspire me, and I hope they inspire you too, everybody. That's why I promote books, because I want everyone out there that listens to this station to just be happy as I am, and just to keep going for the things that you want in life. All right? If you're going through some of this nonsense right now, there's someone better out there for you. Don't settle for less. I love you guys because you checked into this channel. There's so many channels you could have clicked on, but for some reason you clicked on mine to listen to me yap about books for about 10 minutes. I love the hell out of you for. Everybody, have an awesome day.